we welcome in our good friend, our Sixers insider, Ky Carlin. How are you?
What's going on, Rich? How are you today?
I'm doing very well. I appreciate a couple moments as always. So I get annoyed every time I see Simmons trending, right? Because now you got this player wants to play with him and this player wants to play with him. And here you go. And we got all this movement. It could be Dallas. It could be Portland. It could be Indiana. Oh, now it's the New York Knicks. Here's where I'm annoyed. And I want you to tell me if I'm off base with this. When the GM has said, hey, I'll let this ride out for the next several years, to me, you are doing a major disservice to Embiid and you're wasting his prime. And now, again, I can take this a couple different routes. It's almost as though make up, kiss, and get him on the floor if you believe that will help Embiid and this team make a deep run, or figure it out and get him the hell out of here right now. Because this to me, it's madness. It's almost like just to spite each other. And if I'm a Sixers fan, which I am not, I would have to be frustrated.
Yeah, it's getting bad. It's really getting annoying, and it's getting frustrating, and in all sides of this whole thing. You don't want to waste Joel Embiid's prime. Like, Joel right now is still playing at such a high level, even without Ben out on the floor with him. I mean, we just saw him put the team on his back and go for 43, 15, and 7 the other night in Charlotte. Just the dude is incredible. But the thing is, though, Rich, with this roster, with the way it is, without Simmons, they're not a contender in the East. They're not going to beat Brooklyn. They're not going to beat Milwaukee. They might be able to get past Miami if this is not a championship roster without another superstar you could put next to Joel Embiid. So at this point, Rich, and I think you just mentioned it, they really only have two options. You either kiss and make up with Ben and mend the fences and try the thing again, or you finally just accept that you're not going to get a superstar talent like you thought you were for Simmons, and you just settle for maybe an all-star instead. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're going to have to kind of settle for a little less just to get another player out on the floor. The thing is, though, Daryl Morey is so adamant about bringing in a legitimate superstar next to Joel that you might think that he might be willing to punt this season in order to wait for the Damian Lillard situation in Portland.
I think it's horrible. I think that's horrible leadership as a GM. I think it's basically a couple guys sitting at the poker table seeing who's going to bluff first, right? And sometimes you just got to fold. You got to fight to play another hand. And out of the two scenarios you just painted, which one is more realistic?
I think right now kissing and make up with Simmons is probably the most realistic. I mean, Ben did reiterate, he stated that in, I think it was October when he finally cleared the air with his teammates, he's willing to come back. The thing is, it's one of those, I'm trying to get myself ready type of things. But it's also on him to come to really take those steps forward to be ready out on the floor. It's ever since he went out with the mental health and things like that, the organization has been frustrated with him. They haven't really gotten any updates. They really haven't gotten any cooperation on Simmons' side. So, the Sixers, they clearly have a right to be frustrated, but out of those two scenarios, Rich, I feel like the best, the most realistic option is kissing and make up with them and bringing them back.
Yeah, I agree. At this point, you have to save face. And, again, think about this. Okay, let me set my ego aside. I'm a GM. Let me set my ego aside. If I feel that I've got the big man, let's just say prime-wise, I don't know, what are we looking at? Embiid's what, 27 right now? So he'll be 28 in March, I believe. Let's just say you can get 4 more years, right? Because he's a big guy, and centers tend to break down. He's had that injury history. You got to watch the minutes and whatnot. So let's just say 3-4 more years, right? I should set my ego aside and say, I believe Simmons on the floor with him, we can make a run here. We can still make some moves. I know what you were saying before, Ky, where, hey, man, look, it's going to be tough for them to contend. But to me, at least you're telling the fan base, I'm chucking the ego. I don't want to waste a big man's prime. I want to kiss and make up, and I want these guys on the floor. And you know what? Let bygones be bygones. And then maybe in the offseason, they entertain another conversation with the trade. I just think that at this stage of the game, you've got a GM that is, as you said, adamant, and I'll say stubborn, where he wants a buck for a buck, and that's not going to happen. It's almost like if you're going to do it right now, it's going to be pennies on the dollar. And they basically created that. They backed themselves in that corner, and he is almost unwilling to admit, yeah, you know what, we misplayed this hand.
Yeah, it's getting to be that point. It's getting to that point. And you look at the Sixers right now, and this really does kind of feel like it's beginning to be a lost season, right? They're 13 and 11, and obviously there's still so much basketball left to be played. There's 68 games left, or 58 games left, something like that. So it's not like the season is completely lost, but it really does kind of seem like it's trending in that direction, considering that they haven't really made a move yet. Now, things could change December 15th. I feel like that's a date everybody needs to kind of keep an eye on. December 15th is the date more of the league will be available for trades. All the guys who signed for agency contracts in the offseason, they will become available to officially be traded. So that opens up more options, and maybe we'll see something at the end of the month. But for me, Rich, if we don't see a trade by mid-January, then at this point, I feel like, again, you have to just really kind of kiss and make up with Ben and bring him back and try, because you don't want to waste Joel. And like it or not, to all the fans out there, Ben Simmons does help this team. They are a better team with him than they are without him. So I think at this point, Rich, like that's kind of your only option.
So the other elephant in the room, and I don't hear a lot of people talking about this. Let's go back to that game against the Celtics and the final play, which was just an absolute disgrace. So where your thought right now, or I guess you can say, if you're grading Doc's tenure thus far with the 76ers, where are you at with Doc Rivers?
That's a tough question, Rich, because the Boston game was pretty tough, that last play. But I don't think you can really put it on Doc, the last play in Boston. I mean, they got the matchup they wanted. It was just a lack of execution.
No doubt.
They got into Tobias, and I remember it was a switch. Al Horford switched out onto Tobias. Jaylen Brown was guarding Joel. All you had to do is dump it into Joel, and he's probably powering up to the rim, or he's getting fouled. And you're down one, and Joel, he's guaranteed at least one free throw. He's a very good free throw shooter. So I feel like that's really a lack of execution. But that's also something that falls on the coach. So it's one of those things where you kind of go back and forth with it. If I had to give Doc a grade, Rich, I guess I would give him a B plus, like somewhere around that area, because I don't think we can really forget about last season. They were the number one seed in the East. So that's something to where you can't just like turn that off or forget about that. So, yeah, I'd probably say a B plus.
I guess the reason I bring it up is because if you go back, let's just say around, I don't know, February, March of last year, there was pretty much praise for Doc because he was basically able to pull Simmons to the side. And I remember the quote. I think he said, I don't care about Ben shooting as much as people seem to care about. He's a great player. I'm going to let him play, blah, blah, blah. If he takes 10 threes, I'm fine. If he gets the line 15 times, he just, okay, you can – and Simmons had a stretch where he played really, really well. And now after that happens, everyone says, Brown probably had these types of goals in mind and aspirations for Simmons, but he can never get that out of him. And now look where we're at. Now, I'm not saying Simmons basically taking the ball and leaving the sandlot is a slight on Rivers. It's an organizational failure from top to bottom. But I'm a little surprised that, and we don't know, and maybe you can shed light on this, if Doc has really tried to, like, sit him down. Because if you recall when they lost to Atlanta and you came on the air, I told you at that moment, I know it's fresh, the wound is fresh. I would have sat Simmons down right there and then and said, do you want to be great? And if he hesitated, that's when I'm like, you know what, this isn't the guy for me. I'm just wondering, where do you think Doc is in all this? I mean, would you like to see him be a little more assertive with trying to, I guess, smooth it over with Ben, or that's not his job?
Are you saying you would like Doc
as head coach? Yeah, listen, I know he's not taking calls, but if I'm Doc, I would say, look, man, I get it. This is where we're at. Man to man, Ben. You know, I know what I said last year. I still believe we can be a really good team with you on the floor. Let's be honest. You don't want to go a whole season without playing. You know, I'm just thinking, you know what I think sometimes you want to, listen, sometimes players don't want to hear from the GM. Sometimes they want to hear from the coach, if that makes sense, right? Curry a little bit of favor with the player because, as you said, it will be madness if he sits out an entire season. It really will.
It would be shocking if he sat out an entire season, and I can see what you're saying because if you're Doc, he already went on that kind of media tour earlier in the season, where I think it was right before the season started in September.
Yep.
When he was going on the media tour and like, I never said that, you misconstrued what I said, and everything else in between. I think Doc is really just frustrated. There was a report that came out by ESPN's Ramona Shelburne, like right before the season, and he and Daryl already talked with Ben, and I mean, it was basically Doc was like, dude, you have a contract. It's in your contract to show up and play.
Right.
And it's like that's what Doc said to him. So I think Doc is past talking. Like I feel like he's already tried.
Yeah.
So it's a frustrating situation. Like even when Doc gets asked about it now, he shuts it down quickly. Like dude, he's like, I'm done. I don't want to talk about it anymore. Let's talk to Daryl. So it's something to where it's a tough situation, obviously, with that.
A couple things that stand out early on in the season, right? Because we were all talking about, look at Milwaukee, what's going on now? All of a sudden, boom, they won 9 out of their last 10.
Well, I mean, a lot of people seem to forget that they were hurt.
I know, but hey, man, listen, it all comes back to some extent to a betting standpoint, but you're right. Their injuries pile up, and all of a sudden, you get guys healthy. Now they're starting to get healthy. Miami is the 4th seed. I think Washington's one of the most pleasant surprises. I mean, you look at the start that the Knicks had, and now they've faded. They've got their own issues, right, with Thibodeau and Walker. You look at the baby Hawks right now. They've come back down to earth, even though they picked it up a little bit over their last 10. Right now, and I know I'm asking you this, but I already know your answer. Brooklyn, in your estimation, is still the team to beat.
For sure. For sure. And I know the Kyrie Irving thing is so weird.
Yep.
I mean, if the dude would just get vaccinated, we all know he'd be out there. But I think I saw a report by the New York Post today that apparently there's like a vegan vaccine they're working on, and Kyrie said he'd be willing to take that. It's a weird thing. Like Kyrie Irving, I guess, is more all about vegan and plant-based stuff. So if there's going to be a vegan vaccine, Kyrie, I guess would be willing to take it, and then you get him back out on the floor. So I guess that's something that some people have to really work on. I guess they're developing a vegan vaccine.
What's it say that they're 17-7, and Durant and the Bearded One are logging a ton of minutes? Is this more of they're just that good, or the Eastern Conference is just that weak?
Brooklyn is just that good. Like you got arguably the best player in the game right now in Durant, because you can make an argument that you could take him over LeBron right now. You got Durant, arguably the best player in the game. You have James Harden, who is still a top 10 player. And listen, speaking of Harden, that's another guy the Sixers would actually like to go after. I know Damian Lillard is still at the top of their list, and I know that for a fact they're willing to wait out for Dame. But James Harden is another guy that I think fans should really keep an eye on, especially if Harden doesn't, opt into his contract with Brooklyn. If it's not this season, then in the off season. Again, they're still going to do whatever they can to acquire a superstar player in exchange for Ben. So Harden is another guy people should really keep an eye on. But no, you look at the Eastern Conference. Chicago's 17-8, Milwaukee 16-9. Miami right now is 14-11, but they haven't played without Bam Adebayo. He's out for a month and a half with that injury. Jimmy Butler's been banged up lately too, so they've kind of come back to earth. Washington's not that good, I will say that. Washington got off to a great start. Okay, awesome. but I don't think the Wizards are really that good. I think Charlotte's going to be an okay team. They won't do anything, but they'll be entertaining to watch. Sixers, I do believe, will be a top 4 seed by the end of the year. Either they'll be 3 or 4. I think Chicago has staying power. They got, some really good players there. Cleveland's been a huge surprise.
No doubt.
I think the Cavaliers have played very, very good basketball. But then again, I feel like the Hawks and the Celtics, again, they're just going to kind of get themselves together, and they'll be playoff teams this year. But, yeah, when it comes to the, contention in the East, I can see the Nets as the front runner. I feel like the Bucks are, right there. They are the defending champions. You got to give them respect. And then the Sixers, if the Sixers get Ben back, Rich, you do have to somewhat include them in there. They were the number 1 seed last year, and they were, they were pretty much a Ben Simmons dunk and 50% free throw shooting away from the Eastern Conference Finals last year. So I feel like you have to include Philadelphia if Ben does come back. And then I like Miami as well.
Which makes everything that's going on even more perplexing and bizarre. And remember, too, right, you would think he's hopefully staying, mentally ready, because once he's out on the floor, it'll probably, if that happens, I would probably say 10-plus games to kind of reintegrate and get acclimated. I mean, that's just my thought. And like you said, we don't know where his head is at. You mentioned James Harden. Did you see, I mean, I know you watch like I do, but I'm kind of talking to the audience when I say this. Did you see the numbers he was putting up pretty much from the first week in November all the way to through the, I mean, every time I turned around, man, and he's getting to the line 15, 20 times, put up 30, 35, 39. He is probably one of the, I would say, the all-time great scorers in NBA history. We're not talking defense, but one of the all-time great facilitators and scorers in NBA history. He really is, from that standpoint, a great player.
Yeah, Harden is a top 10 player in this game today. If they could have, I'll say this, Rich, if they would have pulled off the Harden trade last year instead of Brooklyn,
yep.
I would have bet money on the Sixers making the finals last year and probably winning it.
Yeah, I can see that.
Like that. That's how highly I think of James Harden. And it bothers me all the people out there oh, I don't want to give up Tyrese Maxey. And sure, Tyrese Maxey's good. He's very, very, very good. Especially so impressive for a second-year guy. But if you have a chance to get James Harden, it doesn't matter. You go get James Harden.
Yeah, no doubt. Hey, listen, before I let you get out of here, great run by Phoenix, right? The ridiculous winning streak. And then you got Golden State, and I know they stubbed their toe against the Spurs and against the Suns, but, man, I'm telling you, we talked a little bit about this over the summer. You get a motivated and healthy Steph Curry. I mean, look what the squad's doing right now. They're 20-4. They got the same identical record as Phoenix in the Pacific. It's amazing what these two teams are doing, respectively.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun to watch Golden State. And speaking of Golden State, they actually come to Philly on Saturday to take on the Sixers. So that's going to be a huge matchup, 8:30. But, I mean, listen, Steph Curry's been playing out of his mind again. You got Draymond Green, who's playing well. Andrew Wiggins has been terrific from three-point range this year. He's been awesome. And then Jordan Poole, the young kid out of Michigan, I think he's in his 3rd year. Jordan Poole's been great, too. And then you're getting Klay Thompson back, in about 3 weeks, I think they said.
Yeah.
2 weeks, 3 weeks. You're getting Klay Thompson back finally. Now, of course, we won't really know what he looks like. He hasn't played since the 2019 finals. But Klay Thompson we all know what he can do. So the Warriors are going to be very, very interesting.
Yeah, and by the way, thank you for calling out Josh Hart. Please don't ever tell me that Home Alone's not a Christmas movie.
Oh, yeah, that's terrible. That's terrible.
I mean, Die Hard's a Christmas movie. Lethal Weapon is a Christmas movie. Trading Places is a Christmas movie. Home Alone, they left him alone for Christmas. It's a Christmas movie.
Yeah, I don't like it. I don't know what he's talking about.
All right, pal. I always appreciate you jumping on board for a couple moments. Of course, the great Ky Carlin, our Sixers insider. Give him a follow on social media. He is all over the place. The microphone peeking through. See him here and there during the post and the I'm telling you, you got to get that network job, pal.
I'm working on it. Believe me, I'm working on it.
All right, if you need any type of letter of recommendation, let me know.
Will do. Thank you, Rich, so much. I'll talk to you later.
Well, I was going to say I can actually find people to do it for you. All right, pal.
There you go.
Be well, pal. You know I help you out anyway. Be well. I always appreciate it. All right.
Of course. Be well, Rich. Thank you
got
so
it,
much.
pal. There you got it. Our guy, Ky Carlin, he's great. He's fantastic. He really does a good job covering the NBA, and he covers the Philadelphia 76ers. 4:41, quick timeout.